All right. Good morning. Thank you for joining us. You have joined the Rapid Change Management webinar series. I am Brennan German. I am president of Bright Talent, and we are hosting this webinar series. I have our head of operations, Renee Maurer, also joining us, and then our guest speaker, Yesmean Rihbany, as well. And I will get back to doing a more formal introduction to Yesmean in a minute. So we are excited you're here. So this Rapid Change Management series is part of a broader, really intention where we want to give back to our community and give our HR community tools they can use. And so to support this, I'm going to bring up, hold on one second. It was here. Here it is. I'm going to bring up our website so we can review this. So as I mentioned, Renee, are you able to see that?
No.
Okay. Doesn't want to share it really quick. I'm just going to share that.
There we go.
There we go. All right. So it wasn't wanting to share. All right. So if you go to our website, brighttalent.com, there is a green banner at the top that you would click to get to our Rapid Change Management Playbook page. It's a web page. And really, this is much more than just a playbook. It's about the entire series. We created this Rapid Change Management Playbook as an ability to download this for free. And it was designed to help our HR community. If you are affecting change, if you're developing new programs within your organization, this really is a playbook to help you affect change. It talks about project management, communication, training, and it's free for download. And you would just come to this banner and click here for more information. And then we also wanted to continue learning. And so we developed this webinar series to really just talk about relevant topics in a podcast style really kind of discussion. And so we are not only doing this live, but we are recording it so that you could come back to this and watch it later. And also we'll have additional materials to download in addition to watching the series. And if you really are not in a position to do this self-service in terms of affect change within your organization or like some support, we actually have some rapid change management services that we could offer you as well. So that was the premise of this entire series, was to give back to our HR community. So that's why we're here. And this webinar, what we thought is to do something fun, short, concise, to the point, really podcast style. For me, I get a little tired of presentation type of webinars. So we just wanted to make this more conversational, talk about a couple of key topics and really hone in on that. And so we'll talk for about 15 minutes or so, and then we'll have an additional 10 minutes of Q&A at the end. And that's really your opportunity to engage with the conversation. And as we're talking, you can use the Q&A functionality on the webinar to list your questions. And then Renee is going to more or less be moderator. And so she will handle those Q&A questions at the end. And then after we are done with this webinar, we will download it and we will notify you when it's downloadable and ready for on-demand watching. So with that, I think Renee is going to jump to the background and then we'll jump right into our discussion. So I'm so actually excited about this topic of empathetic leadership, especially in a virtual world. And there's been much written, about the importance of this. But you have to realize, or at least I realized, so much of this was written before this explosion into the remote workforce and really functioning on a daily basis remotely and over video. And so I thought, this is an area I personally needed use of assistance with. And so I was so grateful that Yesmean was available to talk with us today. So the title is Be an Empathetic Leader Virtually. Really, it's a question mark. Be an empathetic leader virtually? Really? That's easier said than done. And so really, we want to dive into two key areas when we talk about being an empathetic leader. That's prepare and practice being present and attentive, and then to listen and hear as a matter of intention. So these are really important to me. As I shared, I reached out to Yesmean and invited her to be our guest speaker, and I'm so grateful she's here. And so Yesmean, just very quickly on your background, Yesmean is a senior organizational development and talent management leader. After leading the OD function at Western Digital and Earth Tyco, she started her own consulting firm, the Rihbany Group. She has provided a wide range of strategies and solutions for a diverse portfolio of clients, including Gallo Wines, Pacific Life, and Allergan. With her education and deep experience in organizational psychology and global leadership development, Yesmean has developed effective practices to help leaders develop essential skills for today's increasingly mobile workforce. So here we are, Yesmean, 2022. Thank you for joining us. We live in this virtual world. We're in this interesting transition period that I'm sure will be studied in business books, 2 decades from now, where we're in this 100% remote, kind of hybrid, maybe hybrid, come into the office period of time. Who knows where we'll end up landing? It sure does feel, at least as we sit here today, the hybrid type of workforce is where will remain in terms of different people doing different things in terms of on-site and remote. But it's all the same. Even if we're a leader and we're on site, it's possible our employees are remote. So this is an exciting topic. And as I shared with you, something important for me, because I'm, guilty of being very distracted when I'm talking to somebody on the video. So that's really leading into our first question when we're talking about being present and attentive. I like for this webinar, I had to shut down everything. I've turned my phone upside down, right? Closed my email, closed all other websites. How do I combat this overload? When I'm in meetings, and especially more your weekly recurring meetings where you kind of already know what the agenda is, and so you don't start fading away. How do we combat this overload? Just maybe as the first question.
Yeah. So first of all, I'm sure I'm not going to say anything that doesn't seem like, oh, duh, I know that. And I think we do know a lot of what we need to do, what we shouldn't be doing. So it becomes more a matter of, am I disciplined to do it? So this conversation is a lot about kind of reminding us and maybe some insight into kind of where we're going with some of these things, or how we typically react.
Right.
I think because we're sitting in front of a computer that performs so many services for us, we use it to communicate via email. I mean, we watch YouTube videos on it for our entertainment or, increase our knowledge. We have meetings with people, which is not new. We've been having video meetings for, probably 10, 15 years. This is not a new thing. It's the volume that has changed. So we have this device that we use for so many things, and to parcel it off and say, I'm just using it for this right now is a thing of forcing ourselves some discipline. So Brennan, you just shared that I shut down my email. I closed it. I closed everything else so that I could be here. Is probably one of the first steps to realize that you can't be doing more than one thing and be an empathetic leader, because it requires such a presence in that time and such a connection to be able to do that.
I think that's so important because I don't know if it's a cultural thing. I don't know. At some point, I learned I could do emails and talk on the phone at the same time. And really, you are 50-50 at best, right? In terms of your intentionality. And even the science, Yesmean, even the science says, what does the science say about multitasking?
Yeah, the science says, there's a whole book on it. And again, sure, it's knowledgeable myth. Multitasking is a myth. You can't multitask. You can't multitask anything that's significant. Your brain is wired to process one thing well at a time. So you can do several things that don't require a lot of real thinking or analysis or, understanding of a situation. So I can stir the pasta sauce, talk to the dog, or in my case, talk to my rabbit, watch television, and maybe even check texts on the phone. I can do all of those because none of those require any significant brain power, and my brain will bounce between all of those and I will not lose much. But when I have to fully understand a situation, fully understand a person, and I'm trying to multitask, I really am in the switching back and forth. I'm losing data each time. I lose data on each task, which in effect makes us more inefficient because I have to probably go back and re-look at something or what was that? And how many of us have been in meetings where all of a sudden you hear a name called and you don't know what it was and you're going, can you run that by me again? Can
I
you,
am so guilty.
what was that again? Because, and it has to be repeated because your brain was someplace else.
Many of us have read, sorry, yes, so guilty of that. And, Renee is laughing at me right now because I know she's witnessed this all the time as we work together. So it is unfortunately you fall into that trap of thinking it's more efficient, but it's not. And I was going to say, many of us have read Eckhart Tolle's The Power of Now, right, which emphasizes all we have is this present time. How does this, or this present minute, I should say, how does this kind of apply to empathy? So being present, being attentive, how does this apply to empathy?
Well, when you think about what it takes to be empathetic, and I think we all can think of a moment where we've spoken with somebody and truly felt they were being empathetic with us. And we think about what they were doing. They were fully present, and it sounds so cliche, I want to be present with you. What it means is I'm paying attention to what you're saying, how you're saying it. I'm listening beyond just the words to what might be going on behind it. Beyond that, I'm curious, I'm asking questions, and in order to ask relevant questions, I really have to listen to what you're saying. I am holding back on judgment and, demonstrating concern or care or interest. So think about trying to do all of that while you're on your phone looking at something, it's
right.
You are going to miss data. And when you miss data, you miss you're missing that opportunity to connect on that point.
You're reminding me something. A former colleague of mine, we worked together at the Gallo organization, and she's now part of a company called the Museum of Ideas. Ooh. And it's really interesting. And she very deep thinking stuff, and I love it. And she recently posted this article kind of bringing in ideas from others about slowing down as well. So not just present, but what you're talking about is just slow down. Yeah. She talked about the intentionality of Tai Chi, right? That's that slow moving physical exercise. But then she reminded me, or she wrote about this very famous video clip of Andy Warhol eating a hamburger. And it just sounds so like rudimentary, kind of funny even. And I think that was the brilliance of Andy Warhol. We just sat there and watched him eat a hamburger. And it was just the intention of that only. And of course, consumerism, right? In terms of Andy Warhol's theme. But go back and watch that video in terms of slowing down and taking something so just mundane in our everyday life. And it really kind of made me stop and reflect on how many things, and it's even accelerated, this was back in the 70s, and it even accelerated more since then. So I love what you're saying, and that just brought that thought in my mind about the intentionality and slowing down too. And
being slow is actually being more efficient. I mean, we think we go slow so that we can speed up later. We have to balance on being efficient, but is it being effective?
Right.
I want to balance those off, and slowing down is actually a way to speed up.
I love that. That is quotable right there. That's good stuff.
I wish I could say I invented it, but I probably found it somewhere on my many YouTube videos.
So really tying this into the empathy theme here as a leader, right? These are just important tips and really starts with self-awareness and catching yourself in these habits, maybe these bad habits you've developed. So this is all culminating too in the ability to listen and hear as a matter of intent. So maybe just, I think we've all heard this, but maybe just share what's the difference between, that's my first question. What's the difference between listening and hearing?
Well, I think as many of us, probably know, that hearing is just the information being processed through the audio channels and going into the brain. And so we can hear a lot, but not really listen, because listening is beyond the words. It's also the meaning beyond the words. And we all can think of times when we felt listened to and the impact that has on us. And that if we can truly listen to someone else and they feel that impact, it does a tremendous amount to building relationship and building trust. I love the Chinese character for listening, which many people are probably familiar with, but if not,
let me bring that
Chinese,
up. You were
you're going to bring it up. Yeah,
Yes.
I love this. I use it all the time in my training. So the Chinese character for listening is actually made up of 4 characters. The character for ears, obviously, you need that to hear, but it's also the character for eyes. And that means that it's not just what you're saying, but all the nonverbals going with it. What is your facial expression, your posture, your, that's on that. It's also the character for heart. And that is beyond the words you're saying, what are some of the underlying things? It's like, I know what you're saying, but I'm getting a sense that you're pretty frustrated right now. Or I'm getting the sense that there's more to this than, you were kind of bringing to the table. Or I'm getting the sense that you're pretty excited and you may be looking for support. So it's what's beyond that. And then the undivided attention. I think the part that we all stumble with so much now is that it truly is about the undivided attention. So I can really hear, see, and try to understand beyond just the words that are being said. And we know that in terms of communication, more than 70% of the message is nonverbal. So it's through the eyes, and it's through the tone of voice, and it's through the meaning behind what people are saying. And we're going to miss that if we truly aren't really looking and hearing and trying to understand. And I honestly believe Zoom, people say, oh, we're losing a lot with Zoom. And we are. I think we do lose a lot of connection, but we don't lose all of it. I can still see you, Brennan. I can still see your facial expressions. I can still hear your tone of voice. I can still try to understand what might be behind what you're saying and demonstrate curiosity to go a little deeper.
That is so important. You do miss the eye contact, even though it might feel like it. It's not there, but
the eye contact isn't there, but I can see your face.
Yes,
and I can hear your tone of voice.
If I'm frowning or looking up or whatever else, I think that's a great point. So thank you for that clarification, and thank you for sharing that Chinese character. You would introduce that to me, and I think that's just such a deeper understanding of the difference between listening and hearing. And so here's the other thing I'm really guilty of. I am asking you a question, or I potentially am listening to you, but I'm building assumptions in my mind and I'm building my response to you. So therefore, I'm like 50-50 now in my mind, even if I am focused, right? So what are, what's a way that we, I kind of wrote my question, how do we not get sabotaged by our own brains, right? Because we just naturally fall into these habits.
Yeah, and I think you hit it on, it's a habit. So a habit is built over repetition. You build your habit by doing something. And it is really a matter of self-discipline in that moment and telling yourself, stop, look, listen. And I mean, it's shutting down that I'm listening with the intent to respond versus really listening to try to understand. And it is that moment of saying, stop it. I mean, you have to have your own listening coach kind of built inside of you that knows what you should and shouldn't be doing and reminds you of that. So, and I'm really into, incremental change. So it's not like all of a sudden you go from listening like this to listening like this, like that. It's like, was I able to do it 2% better today than I did yesterday? Am I 1% better? Was I able to stop it for at least 5 seconds before I start doing it again? Was I able to stop it for 10 seconds? So it's really trying, and that's how your habit begins, that you don't listen with the intent to reply. And you really are kind of focused on what that person is saying and what they need in that moment with you.
That is a fantastic tip. It's the self-awareness, right? It's becoming self-aware and then working on it. And then, like me, not beating yourself up if you get it wrong. It's just these incremental gains. I love that. I recently saw an executive coach speak, and she gave a great acronym for people that like to gab like myself. Unfortunately, I'm gifted in gabbing, so I need to stop, right, and really just listen. And she gave a great acronym called WAIT, and I had never heard this, but WAIT. Why am I talking? So I have to stop myself. Like, why am I talking? Sometimes you just talk.
I love that. I'm writing it down.
I
Why
know.
am I talking?
Why am I talking? And so I've actually used it a couple of times in meetings. Stop talking. So that way I could listen better, and then I feel a bit more confident about what I'm hearing too, in terms of actually understanding.
Yeah. And doing all of these things, it really raises your EQ, your emotional intelligence, because all of this is about self-awareness and how do I modify myself in the moment to make that connection with another person. So it raises your EQ, which we know you can raise. It's not something that's, fixed in your mind. And I love that, why am I talking?
Yeah.
That triggers that self-awareness moment with you and allows you to make a different choice about what you're doing mentally and with your words.
That's just great advice. So we're going to pull up here. This always goes so fast because we only have, so long.
Oh my gosh, the time flies.
I know, but I want to make sure we do get to some of our Q&A too from those attending. And I'll just ask Renee to jump in and see if she's got some questions in the Q&A.
I do. Okay, so what is the best way to recognize if you are not being empathetic or any other cues?
I think that's such a good self-awareness question, because that shows a level of self-awareness in doing that. I think I want to kind of do a little bit of a play on why am I, why am I talking to, why am I listening right now? What is it that this person is trying to say? I like this, and this comes from the work in DDI. They talk about personal needs and practical needs, and personal needs. So asking yourself, what does this person need? And if I'm in that moment, I can't kind of answer what they need beyond the what, when, where stuff. Then I'm saying maybe that's a cue that I'm not being empathetic. And a good trigger to help you to do that is to ask the question, what do you need from me right now? What can I do right now? And or reflect back that you hear the person is frustrated, excited, concerned. And again, little bits at a time that you start weaving that into how you interact. Hope I answered that.
Great. Okay. So we have another one. If I flipped all of this, how do I help my manager when we're in meetings to become more empathetic? Can I use like reverse psychology, such as saying, can I share how I'm feeling with you? Have you seen this work to help unempathetic leaders?
I'm telling you, that's a much harder road to go, because to be empathetic requires a level of EQ and requires a level of, as part of that is self-awareness. And so helping the person cultivate a level of awareness and to understand the impact they're having, I believe you can ask for what you want. Say, I would like, I feel like I would like to, get more in depth with this and for you to hear some of my concerns. So let me do that. Let me, share that. So kind of being, kind of requesting. You can also share the impact that someone's having on you. You feel like you have a relationship, and I hope you do. And if not, cultivate a relationship of candor and demonstrating courage with your manager to say the impact, in your words, of course, the impact of what you just said is this. I'd like for you to hear this. So helping to clarify that. Now, this all is based on the fact that your manager may have a small interest in being empathetic. If they have zero interest in being empathetic, you can keep doing it and hopefully you'll make a dent in it, but it's difficult to change someone that doesn't want to change.
Great point.
Great, thank you. We have another one. So what is something small that we as leaders and managers can do to start each day to build more empathetic habits in ourselves in our interactions within the workplace?
That's an excellent question. And also, I think by modeling the behaviors, you start to then influence others in those behaviors. I think something small would be to start your day or to start a conversation with the idea of, I mean, you may be walking into a meeting or just even passing somebody in the hall in that moment to set an intention or to plan. What do I want to have happen now? How do I want this person to walk away from this conversation or in this meeting? And to kind of set that, do your best to make that happen. And then at the end, after all said and done, how did that go? So you're kind of building a continuous improvement loop for yourself. Again, looking at incremental improvements versus these massive, like, okay, now I'm the most amazing empathetic listener. And another thing I find to be helpful at being more empathetic is to formulate questions. You know, when somebody says something that there's kind of a significance to what the energy around it, is to ask a question before telling. You know, I don't know about you, but I'm great at giving advice. And the first thing out of my mouth might be, well, maybe you should, or have you tried? My husband is not crazy about that, by the way. So the thing is to say, oh, it sounds like, what happens next? Or how would that, how do you see that moving forward? Or what do you need? By asking questions, you are demonstrating curiosity and interest, you are gaining more information, and you're certainly showing your empathy.
So we are out of time. Renee, hopefully there's not a lot more. I'm seeing a few more, but I think we've got to honor the time slot here.
Yes.
And this is a wonderful topic, and this is easily a discussion for, you know, a full hour, but we're going to pull up here. We're going to remain committed to how we design this podcast style webinar and keep it short and concise. Yesmean, so grateful to have you join us. I've learned some great tips. As a moderator, I try to talk less and listen more. And it's just so great that we're covering this topic. And I'm so grateful that you were here. Again, this has been recorded. We will download this. And we'll notify you when it's downloaded. And then Yesmean has some materials too we'll be able to share with you, I guess, supporting exactly what she said in terms of really how to learn how to become that empathetic leader virtually. Be on the lookout for future webinars. We'll have some other topics we will cover. We'll at least have one more webinar before end of year. Other than that, thank you everybody for joining. So grateful to have you, and I hope you all have a great day.
It's a pleasure not seeing all of you, but connecting with all of you, at least in this virtual environment. Thank you, Brennan.
Awesome, Yesmean. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.